Some fears feel so real that they shake your entire sense of self. And you can try and breathe through it, but typically the mind just continues to spiral. The body locks up and tenses, and we're right back in survival mode. And there's nothing much spiritual about that. And if you don't shift how you relate to fear, your spiritual path can just become endless doubt and confusion. So, if you give me 15 minutes of your time, this video is going to hand you a clear method to dissolve that fear so that you finally feel free to move forward on your spiritual path, so that you stop holding back, you can move through resistance and step into the next phase of your awakening with a bit more clarity and a bit more calm. Now, I'm Jamie. Over a decade ago, at the age of 19, I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening with zero guidance, no framework to understand it. Later, I found a teacher and studied with him for over a decade, doing deep yogic training, breaking down everything so that I could finally make sense of my own experience. And from that, I found out what works and what doesn't. And I built a step-by-step path that helps people make sense of their awakening and accelerate their path so that they can move forward with clarity without all the years of doubt and confusion. Now, in this video, what we're going to discover is this. We're going to discover why fear still has a hold on us. We're going to understand what's underneath that panic in the system. We're also going to find out what's blocking our surrender so that you can fully let go and completely dispel all of these fears. We're going to have a look at the 5 poisons on the spiritual path, and this is coming from an ancient system that maps out exactly why fear arises and how the ego tries to hold on in this awakening process. And finally, we're going to give you a step-by-step method to be able to dissolve fear instantly, and that's going to be incredibly powerful for your path. So stick around, and let's start with why the hell fear might still have a hold on you. Well, you might be doing everything right. You might be watching the content online, right, and getting really obsessed with your spiritual path, just like I did all those years ago. Maybe even beginning a sadhana practice. Sadhana is your daily spiritual practice that brings about the inner aliveness in your system that accelerates your spiritual growth. You might be doing all of those things. So why does fear still hijack your system? What's actually underneath all of this panic? Well, you've probably been told to just let go by well-meaning people, but you can't really let go of something that you first don't understand. So first, before we let go, I want you to begin understanding the nature of fear and what the bloody hell it's all about. See, fear isn't just an unconscious reaction. It is that, but it's often a signal that a deeper part of you still believes something terrible is waiting for you. Now, in that moment, as you're being guided by that fear, that's not your higher self responding. For a while, it can seem like fear completely mimics the intuition, doesn't it? And we take it as absolute fact. But actually, it's not our intuition. This is just completely our survival brain. And at the center of that response of our fear is one hidden belief. Do you want to know what it is? It's a belief about our life, like if X, or if this fear happens, or if this thing manifests, I won't be okay. So we're saying to life, I don't trust that whatever happens, you're going to take care of me. Now you can insert your own fear there. But what we have to do is, in time, begin surrendering these fears into life. So if you want some help with finding your beliefs, because this is what these fears are, is our belief systems, which really is a core part of this path, then I have an AI tool that I made for my students, and you can give it a go. There's a link among other resources down below, and it's totally free. Give it a crack, find the beliefs, and help yourself with that. So if surrender then is the goal, surrendering these beliefs, then what's stopping that surrender from naturally arising? What is it that's actually in the way? Well, fear thrives when we still think that we need to control how our life is going to unfold. We want control, don't we? That need to control, though, is actually coming from the ego's grip, that separate sense of self, that psychological one in the mind, not actually coming from your soul's wisdom or spirit. You see, the ego, the psychological one, was never really designed to be able to know where we need to go in life. It's just a culmination of past fear, past hurt, and unresolved pain. In fact, it's just projecting our past pain onto the future, and we don't really want to recreate that. do we? So every bit of panic that you're experiencing in your system right now, i.e. fear, is saying, I can't trust because I can't let go of control here. Now, you already know this probably, but this is your attachments, the things you do like, and your aversions, the things you don't like, speaking. Like we're still trying to control how life unfolds and resisting what happens based upon my preferences. And to be honest with you, we have no idea actually how our life is meant to unfold at all. We just think we do, but that's just based upon trying to create a life from comfort, which is okay. We're all incredibly comfortable, but we're also the most miserable society that we've ever actually had in existence. And so maybe comfort isn't what we want. So if we've now realized this is my attachments and my aversions that are causing resistance and causing fear and stopping me from surrendering, well then is there a framework in which I can use to begin understanding this better for myself? Yes. See, spiritual traditions have been explaining this stuff for thousands of years, and so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The frameworks are already here. See, all of this fear and panic that we're experiencing, well, it isn't random. So that must mean then that it has a predictable route, right? See, when fear arises, it's so easy to accept it as fact. We do it all of the time. But actually, what if every fear could be traced back to a pattern that your ego is actually trying to use to survive? Fear is not truth. It's just a survival mechanism. And I think we're all beginning to wake up to this. Now, there is a system that lays this out clearly and shows you exactly how fear arises from ego. So we're going to talk about that, and it's called the poisons or the afflictions. And this is going to map out exactly why fear arises and how ego tries to hold on. So we're going to imagine this like a tree, and the tree stump is avidya, essentially forgetting who you really are. So this is ignorance. We're ignorant to our true nature. So let's break this down. What's the first thing that happens when that fear hits our system? What's the earliest moment that our ego takes over? Well, in the heat of fear, you forget your stillness, your essence, your true nature, and you mistake yourself for the one who's frightened, who's scared. Your nervous system fires up, and your mind says, this is happening to me. Psychological separate sense of self, isn't it? But the one watching that fear, that's you. See, fear can only dominate when you believe you are the ego, not the awareness behind it. So we've just lost our true place. We've become ignorant to our true nature temporarily. It creates a veil over our existence. This is avidya. Meaning not, and vidya meaning wisdom. Not wisdom. So fear begins the moment that we forget our true self. We forget that we're the awareness behind our ego, not the ego itself. The next level of this tree, if we're building it up, is asmita. This is where we're beginning to identify with a false sense of self, the ego. So if you're not the ego then what the bloomin' hell are you? And why does fear feel like such a threat to who you are? Well, you've built up a self-image, whether you believe me or not. Unfortunately, we've all done it. As a partner, as a parent, as a worker, I own a business, I'm an entrepreneur, etc. And even a lot of the students that I work with can be a spiritual person. You see, many different identities. This one's a dangerous one. But when something threatens that image, it makes it feel like it's a threat to you and to your existence. But roles and identities, they're just masks. We know this. They're not who we really are. We've just forgotten our true place. Now, the ego defends its mask as if it's going to be life and death for it, because for the ego, it is. This is ignorance, isn't it? So we mistake our roles, our thoughts, and our emotions for who we are. So any threat to those feels like a threat to our existence. And now comes the interesting part, because now we're going to talk about raga and dvesha, which are two sides of the same coin, attachment and aversion. So because now we have an identity, a separate sense of self, it forms likes based upon past enjoyment and things that had an overwhelming positive experience ourselves, like Kundalini awakening, or like that first sexual experience that created a sexualized identity, etc., etc. So these things are based upon past enjoyment, and we call these attachments, raga, because we're attached to the things that bring us comfort, success, security, bliss, and even spiritual highs. But attachment also breeds fear because now you have something to lose. Now the ego starts scanning, what if this thing that I've attained, if it's a spiritual experience, slips away? Well, it will. So you can't relax into peace if you're continually clinging to it like, ugh. Gotta let the cat claws out. So we fear losing what gives us pleasure, status, or safety, even if it no longer serves us. But then there's the flip side of this coin, dvesha, aversion. This is the other side of attachment. Because this is about the fears that aren't about losing something good, but facing something hard or resisting something that we don't like. So as you can imagine, if we're doing that, we can't be free. Because your mind says, oh, this situation again? Hell no. That emotion? Not safe. No way. I'm not feeling that, and I'm not going to ever be in a situation where I ever even slightly create that for myself again. Aversion is the flip side of attachment. It's pushing away what actually might help you grow. And ironically, the discomfort that we're avoiding here is often the exact gateway to our freedom. But the ego wants comfort, not growth, even if it means staying stuck. So we fear anything that might bring discomfort, even if it's the discomfort that would set us free. Now then, moving on to the final part of the tree, abhinivesha. At the bottom of it all, what's the fear really about? All of it. What's the core thing that your ego can't handle? Well, whether it's fear of rejection, change, or failure, they all point to one thing. The ego believes something in you is going to die. Your reputation, your control, your story. But what if death actually isn't a problem, but it's more of a passageway, an initiation? Because true freedom means letting parts of you die so that deeper parts of you can begin to flourish and a new life can begin happening for you. See, at the root of all the fear is the belief that some part of you won't survive, even if it's just your image, your story, or your control. But those, especially that control one, sorry to break it to you, were all an illusion. Okay, so you understand the patterns now, you understand how these 5 kleshas work and operate, but we do need to make it practical. So when fear hits mid-meeting, mid-panic, mid-mental spiral, what do you do? Well, insight alone isn't going to be enough. You need a practice that works in the moment. Now, most of us Westerners, we try to fix or analyze our fear through the mind because we've made logic our God, which just feeds it and perpetuates it more. So I'm going to give you a game that you can play, and we're going to play cards. See, because you can use your fear like a card that you've been dealt into your hand. Each one points straight to what your ego is still clinging to. But that's not super relevant. If you want to work all of that stuff out, you can, but I'm going to give you something even easier. Because this is a cool analogy, card game, awesome. But how are we actually going to dissolve that fear? So now you've identified that fear's here and there's an attachment or an aversion behind it. How are we going to stop reacting to it? What does letting go look like when my system is completely in overdrive? Well, our usual response is control. It's fix the thought. It's escape the feeling. It's plan a different outcome, isn't it? But freedom doesn't really come from control. It comes from deeper and deeper levels of surrender. Now that trust is like a muscle, that surrender muscle. And just like in the gym, it strengthens through repetition. Now each time you feel fear, you have a choice. Imagine it like the card in front of you. You have a choice to react with resistance or train your let go muscle into life. So as you become aware of the playing card, instead of freaking out, you can begin to train that inner let go muscle back into your stillness. So we train that let go muscle so our response isn't reinforcing the illusion of control. It actually allows us to release into our natural state and then just see what this does for your state of being. And if this idea of a let go muscle seems more like a cool analogy than something real that you can actually do, then I'd invite you to use our double breathing practice down below. It's also going to teach you what dynamic stillness is. And it'll become very clear that this is actually a muscle that we're beginning to train. Well, now that we've seen how fear is just the ego trying to cling to control, maybe you want to know what might be there for you if we stop controlling. Is it possibly the start of a transformation? Well, watch this video here to understand the pivot point between two identities and the two worlds that we're trying to navigate, and how to move through this beginning of a collapse without getting stuck. All right, and you can watch that one right there.